Dear Diary, today we're going to tackle a big topic, which is that sadly in the year 2011, I don't think there's any dispute. We could even get 10,000 of the world's top historians. Sadly, it appears that we'll do another one that talks about how I'm the smartest human being of all time, which is not saying much. Certainly, I'm the most creative and talented human being in history, which isn't saying that much, although there are many more people on the planet who are talented than who are smart. Really amazing craftsmen, skilled people. But what's really sad is it appears unquestionable that yours truly is the most important human to have ever walked the planet. Now, the first problem is, if you notice, they never actually try to categorize who's the most important human of all time. Right? When you say who's the greatest guitarist, people get lazy and drop the name Jimi Hendrix. Not remotely true, but whatever. Unless you're smartest man, people get lazy and they all go to the cliche, which is Einstein. Guy was an idiot. When you talk about most important people in life, who did they give man of the century or the millennium? Was that William Shakespeare? That was a bit of a stretch. Of course, remember, it's like, who do you have for competition? If we try to figure out, without my existence, who's the most important person in human history? All right, it's not going to be Jesus Christ. Because even if you believed in him, well, look what happened in his name. We got Christians like George W. Bush. Yeah, right. Remember, the irony I always say is that the only people I've ever met in my life who act anything like Christ or live anything like Christ did are all atheists. Very curious. But if we try to narrow down who are the most important people in human history, there's almost no names leap out. I would argue Da Vinci, but even that's a real stretch. Tesla, certainly as far as like having an effect on more people's lives, Tesla had more effect than all of our founding fathers and most of the politicians on the planet combined. Tesla certainly was smarter than everyone else, practically. Not as original or as creative as me. Of course, look at his facial hair versus mine. Look at his outfits versus mine. He was very uncreative, very lazy intellectually in many ways. But I am not. I try to make it that everything I do is innovative, no matter what I do. I'm not interested in cliches. There's already plenty of predictable cliches on this planet, and I wish more of you would join me in declaring all-out war on cliches. Anyhow, who would you make most important person on Earth? Steve Jobs? Piece of shit. Certainly not the most important man in human history. Steve Jobs is mostly, like most of our icons, an empty suit. George Washington, historians all agree now, he was a fucking retard moron. He was just some sheep they threw in there. Okay? It's a puppet, like all of our politicians and our executives. He was a puppet designed to be manipulated by others. You always want the guy in charge to be a moron. And if you look at all our presidents, they were all morons. Abraham Lincoln was a fucking jackass who said that blacks were inferior to whites morally and intellectually. Bullshit, you stupid racist piece of shit. And, of course, we live in a world where everything is upside down. Everything up is down. So a racist piece of shit like Abraham Lincoln would get credit for freeing the slaves, which was never his intent or his desire. And on and on. Almost everything you've been told, almost everything you believe is not true. And I don't know what it's going to take before mankind starts to realize that. History is written by the winners. It's written by the hagiographic statistics. Sorry. My brain's not really here. That'll happen after they torture you and sleep deprive you for 20 years to silence your dissenting viewpoints. Who would you make the most important? We can't even say who the 5 most important humans of all time. Some people might say Caesar. Okay, if Caesar hadn't been born, how much different would the world look today? So this is one of the things to consider. For instance, when people knee-jerk and I'll say, you're not more important than Galileo, you're not more important than Einstein or Da Vinci, I say, well, I can prove that wrong in one sentence. And they go, yeah. I'm like, yeah. Name one thing any of those guys invented that would not have been invented had they never been born. And they all go, well, okay, that's a valid point. if Galileo had never been born, every one of his astronomical innovations would have been discovered later. It's like me saying, I invented the wheel. Oh, how many people use the wheel? Well, I must be the greatest human ever. I invented the wheel 400,000 years ago. Nope, because if you hadn't been born, anyone else would have invented the wheel. So that's one of the ways you need to look at it when they say, oh, this person's important. This person's a leader, an innovator, a visionary. Okay, not impressed unless what they envisioned or created was something that nobody else would have ever figured out. Do you see the difference? It's not impressive to be the first person to invent the wheel. It's as impressive as being the first person to jump into the pool. It's not impressive at all. Like, I do amazing things on guitar, and some people go, oh, Eddie Van Halen did that. I'm like, well, Eddie Van Halen started playing guitar 20 years before me. Do you think that's a really fair race? Him and I are in some kind of chronological race, and he got a 20-year head start? You're a fucking asshole. So, can you name anything by Da Vinci that wouldn't exist if he hadn't been born? Portraits of the Last Supper? No. Mona Lisa's a piece of shit. I, like many other people, appreciate Da Vinci not for his art. He was an excellent painter, but so were 500,000 other guys. Who cares? Who gives a shit? Anyone can paint like that. Just practice. But you can't be a super genius like me, even if you practice all day and all night. Because I'm an extreme human being. Right? Anyone can learn to play guitar as well as me without using their index fingers. No one's ever done it. No one's ever going to do it after I'm gone. Because humans are all robots and who adhere to their programming. I have always defied my programming since I was a little boy. It wasn't something I decided to do. I mean, it just takes me down a couple notches, but it's in my DNA. I mean, if you're a natural on the drums, well, then we shouldn't respect you. If you worked your ass off to become that good, maybe we should. It gets a little complicated, but it's worth arguing about, people. Arguing is good. It gets people to use their brains and think, debate. Which humans don't do much of. And that's why the world is still a vegetative retard parade. So Einstein, now, again, you don't know much about Einstein. Nobody does. All they know is I'm lazy. I don't really think shit through. I don't want to do my homework. So if I have to name somebody who's really smart, I'm going to say Einstein because it's well established among my peers that he's one of those smart guys. But most people don't know that Einstein was wrong about almost every one of his scientific theories. End of story. If you're wrong most of the time, I wouldn't call you a scientific genius. I would call you a scientific retard. But I'm weird like that. Everyone else on Earth says, if you're always wrong, you're a genius. I don't agree with the human race. And I think most of you in hindsight would go, shit, he's right again. He just proved the entire human race wrong again. They all said Einstein was brilliant. Make it even worse, the few times Einstein was correct, and don't get me wrong, Einstein was smarter than the average person, but that's not saying anything. I think, wasn't he a vegetarian? I loved his quote where he says, imagination is more important than knowledge. I've been saying that my whole life. Everyone says, you're crazy. Well, now I can say, well, your buddy Einstein said I'm right, so fuck off. Knowledge is meaningless. Knowledge is worthless. Let me make this point again because I can never make it enough. People think knowledge is a sign of intelligence. It isn't, and I make this quick analogy. Filing cabinets are filled with knowledge. They don't have 1% intelligence. Encyclopedias are filled with knowledge. They don't have 1% intelligence. Since I was a boy, I've been telling people, do not use your brain as a storage cabinet. That's what most people use their brains for, as storage cabinets. They store information. I'm like, you know that brain does other things too, right? It's an idea generator. Any human on Earth can cure cancer. Any human on Earth can change the world. Any human being on Earth can eliminate homelessness. The human brain can do remarkable, miraculous things. But not if you don't use it. Not if it's just sitting on a shelf collecting dust, right? I got an amazing $700 guitar synthesizer. That thing does amazing shit. But it's just collecting dust in my storage place. Because I got arrested so many times falsely and spent all my time in court fighting with my own stupid lawyers. So, are we in agreement so far? Einstein, fucking idiot. Oh, keep this in mind, everyone forgets this. Einstein's one big achievement, the theory of relativity, was proven wrong by a teenager, like 50 years later. It was a teenager who proved all the world wrong. He said, did nobody pick up this mathematical mistake in Einstein's theory? Oops. Einstein, an idiot, useless idiot. Da Vinci, Tesla. Tesla invented more things than you know. Fluorescent lights, the cell phones you use, the AC outlets you plug into in the wall. All that stuff is Tesla. And there's a lot of other things he did. Look into that guy. Pretty smart. I would argue he's top 5 most important human beings on Earth. Now, that's not to say that everything he did was good. Do I want to vouch for fluorescent lights? Do I want to vouch for electricity in the walls? I don't think so. I think if I had been doing electricity and all that shit that he does, I would have created bike generators for every house because I would want some personal responsibility, and it's also a billion times more efficient. Have the people produce their own electricity. You want to watch TV? No problem. Just get on the bike. You want to cook? No problem. Get on the bike. You can set it up so you can read while you're on the bike. You can do a lot of your work while you're on the bike producing electricity. But to me, that'd be a lot more efficient than sending electricity thousands of miles across wires where you lose and lose and lose tons of electricity. I mean, there's a million better ways to do it. Now, I don't know enough about it. Maybe Tesla tried and the government stopped him. Who knows? But we know this. The things that Tesla did were remarkable. But I would venture that a lot of them, if not all of them, would have eventually been invented by somebody else. But we don't know if, we don't know if, like some things, we know that Edison was a fucking jerk-off, and we know that Edison was a fucking crook. We know that Edison wanted to put DC in our walls and fought against Tesla and lost. And I think most people seem to say Tesla's ideas were a lot better than Edison's. But again, history books are garbage, and I'm going to hit pause. So if we continue to look, we see that there really aren't any human beings who get credit, would be like even in our top 5, most important human beings. Because almost everything in human history was collective, right? You could say, well, the American Revolution, one of the most important events in mankind history. You could argue that. I'm not sure I'll agree with you. I think the American Revolution was a facade. I think, like almost everything else in history, it was an illusion meant to please the plebeians and the sheeple. All right, I've made that argument before. I'm the first person I've ever heard make the argument that the American Revolution was a scam, like everything else is a scam. And I figured it out by a lot of clues. Example, you guys tried to make George Washington king, and you admit that. Okay, then how the fuck can any retard on earth say that the goal of the Founding Fathers was democracy? You admit you wanted to make it a monarchy. You just wanted to replace one monarchy with a closer-to-home monarchy. Shut the fuck up. What horseshit. Also, when you look at it and you go, wait a minute, if you watch the way war operates, you know how it operates. War is only about money and greed. It's never about what it pretends to be about. American Revolution supposedly fought for independence and freedom. Well, we all saw America has never been free. It's one of the least free nations on the planet. The Founding Fathers couldn't even free the fucking slaves. They couldn't even give women the right to vote. Tell me, you guys cared about equality? Lies. All fucking historical lies by our government to say our government's the best, our government's the best, USA #1. It's all Nazism. Nationalism is Nazism. Never forget that. Anyone loves their country. Oh, my nation, my nation. That's Nazism. I've never given a fuck about provincial shit like that. Oh, our football team's better than your football team. Shit's stupid. Shit's childish. Come on, people. So if we look at human history, though, we can't really find many people, individuals, who are critical to the development of the human race. Karl Marx? Nope. Communism is an obvious concept that most people learn after their first or second jobs as teenagers. It's like, wait a minute, I'm doing all the work, that fucking asshole's sitting on his ass, and he's making more money than me? What the fuck is wrong with this picture? Communism is common sense. Oh, I should call it common sensism. Sorry. Now, here's my point. If you take the 500 most important, let's say you all got experts together and you all agreed, historians, on 500 most important people in human history. My point is, I'm more important than all 500 of them combined. Now, again, you're going to knee-jerk as a human being and think, oh, fucking asshole thinks he's hot shit. No. I think being the most important human being of all time is the worst possible scenario for a human being, especially if you're me. Because I would have been a genius whether I was born to poor parents or rich parents. Because a lot of my stuff is in my DNA. I got it from my dad who didn't raise me. A lot of the stuff I later found out my dad used to do, so I don't take credit for it. My questioning authority, I don't take credit for that. That was in my DNA. That's like me taking credit for the fact that my hair is brown or that my nose, I have a really nice nose, an exceptional nose. Do I take credit for that? No. So I don't take credit for a lot of my gigantic brain and my massive intellect and my questioning authority and my detective skills when I was a little boy at 4 years old, putting a note on the Christmas tree to see if there was really a Santa and see if he'd get it if it was just my mom or somebody. Things like that. I've been always doing stings since I was a very little boy. I still do them to this day. Test because I don't believe anybody. I don't trust anything. And it turns out 99% of the time, everyone's full of shit or wrong. So, now some of the reasons we know I'm the most important human being of all time is, example. One, I think we can all agree, my whole life I've done superhuman things that no other human being can do. Two, we have seen me do many things that no other human will ever do. You can give them another 100,000 years. You can give them another 900,000 years. But they're not going to figure out a lot of the stuff I figured out. Some of it, yes, right? I mean, I wasn't the only person who said mass transit should be free, but I was the only person who broke it down by the numbers and proved it actually is cheaper to make mass transit free, and it's infinitely more efficient, saves gasoline and everything else, to make it free. And put out really comprehensive proposals about these things. A lot of my visionary ideas are not that extraordinary. Some of them are extraordinary. My profit sharing law, that's extraordinary. Now, you're going to tell me, now there's profit sharing at certain businesses around the world, but why isn't there profit sharing at all businesses? It's a magical fusion of capitalism and communism simultaneously, which should sound like it's impossible, but it's not. Right? If anybody who works at a fucking McDonald's or fucking a teller at a Citibank is getting profit sharing, they're going to want to make sure the customers get the best service because they want to come back because the more money this McDonald's makes, the more money I'm going to make at the end of the year, my bonus. So it's capitalism and it's communism. You understand? All our boats rise together. We're all in this together. However, the harder I work, the more money I'm going to make. So it's fabulous. And all my ideas are fabulous. And if you go back and look at my 100 innovations for New York City as mayor, they were brilliant. And Bloomberg took a whole bunch of them and got credit for it. And he did every one of them fucked up and he flubbed it. 311 hotline, saving the High Line. It was a fucking mess. Turning Times Square into pedestrian mall. All those are in my platform in 1997 and 2001. They're not in Bloomberg's in 2001, 2005, or 2009. So he's full of crap. And what was I trying to say? I think we're going to have to make this in two parts because I'm going to go on at length for those naysayers who don't know anything about me. Remember, there's only one human being on Earth who knows more than 3% about me. Me. Even Delfino probably knew me better than most people. 4 years I dated her, and we lived together for 2 years. She knows a lot about me. She would call me a genius endlessly. Remember, she proposed to me. On the second time we hung out, she said she would leave her fiancé of 6 years to date me. I mean, I must be pretty fucking extraordinary. Delfino really could choose to date somebody with more money than me if she really wanted to fucking climb the ladder. But she said, this guy's the most fucking amazing person I've ever met. And I am. In so many ways. Oh my God, I can't even keep track of how amazing I am. There's just too many things. In one day, I proved to be more amazing than any human in history. In just any one day of my life. Stuff I did earlier today. Fucking genius. But that's the mark of genius isn't you come up with a great idea. It has to be that nobody else came up with a great idea. That's my high standard. I don't care if Da Vinci was digging up bodies to study the musculature. I applaud him. It's pretty ballsy. However, if he had never been born, it would have eventually been illustrated anyhow and documented. I don't know of anything Da Vinci did. Helicopter? Bravo. It would have eventually been invented anyhow. Now, if you look at a lot of my inventions, well, this is one test. For instance, just take my guitar innovations. Okay, it's like I do stuff on guitar that other experimental guitarists can't figure out. I'm like, well, what I'm doing here is I'm using a fresh dime. And I'm like, now I know what you're saying. You're like, well, Christopher, that's not fair. I mean, they didn't have fresh dimes when Jimi Hendrix was playing guitar. They didn't have fresh dimes when Eddie Van Halen or Steve Vai were playing guitar. Yeah, they did have fresh dimes, actually. In fact, they did. Or my Grad Effects system, which is the hands-down most brilliant guitar effects application process in human history. It's simple as a volume pedal and a Y splitter or a Y cable, which they had in 1968. So nobody but me figured it out. It's possibly Fred Frith, because Fred Frith's probably the second most innovative guitarist in history after me. Of course, even a lot of Fred's stuff disappoints me because doing avant-garde in an avant-garde setting to me is lazy and cheap and easy. But doing avant-garde, I put the avant-garde into mainstream musics to make it that much more revolutionary and to change everything. It changes the avant-garde while simultaneously changing the mainstream. To do avant-garde in the avant-garde is to create your own ghetto where you're fucking just circle jerking. Blah, blah, blah. Like I said, John Cage doing 4 minutes and 33 seconds of silence. It's a cute little conceptual idea, cheap gimmick. Anybody would have thought of that when they were 13. If they're thinking and being innovative composers, is what I'm trying to say. Cage is obviously smarter than everybody else, but that's by default. Most composers are lazy as fuck. They're just imitating the past. Most humans just imitate the past. I've never understood that. I don't want to have facial hair like anybody else. I don't want to wear clothes that look like anybody else. Why would I want to be a clone? I don't understand humans. And I don't know that humans are really this way. Because remember, sometimes you don't know what's nature, or sometimes you don't know what's nurture. Right? We see on Halloween that people enjoy getting dressed up like freaking idiots. They enjoy it. So maybe they don't really want to dress like normal, boring people every day. Maybe they do that because they don't have a choice. But then you look at Halloween, you say, oh, most people are wearing very uncreative costumes. Okay, but is that by choice, or is it because they're insecure and shy because they live in a society that made them insecure and shy, so they can't follow their heart, so they play it safe by putting on a Superman costume because they still want to fit in, even though it's a night where they're given free rein and carte blanche to dress like a fucking idiot and goof off and have fun. End of part 1.